Hello everybody, welcome to the Pervasive Media Studio Lunchtime Talk. These talks are live every Friday at 1 p.m, both here in the building and live online. Hello everybody online, joining us across Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. So whether you are in Bristol or whether you are far, far away, you can join in this conversation with us. My name is Tony. I will tell you a little bit more about myself shortly. This is a bit of a meta presentation because I'm presenting the talk, which I'm about to be part of in a second as well. All will be revealed, right. Lunchtime talks are part of our Open Studio Friday offer. Every Friday, we open up the doors of the Pervasive Media Studio and offer you the chance to come in and spend some time hot desking alongside our residents and our staff between the hours of 10 and 5. These talks, like the ones that we're doing today, cover everything from innovative research in fields of creativity and technology through to projects in progress, which are in need of feedback, questions and curious minds. A really warm welcome to those of you who are new in the studio. I know there's a couple of new faces in here today. If this is the first time you're engaging with us, I've got a little bit of info for you. Those who've heard this bit before, you might want to take this moment to talk about today's talk on your socials and get more people joining us and joining in the conversation. The more the merrier, as always. So, what is the Pervasive Media Studio, I hear you ask? We are a diverse and collaborative community exploring creativity and technology with everything from comedy to coding to product development through to performance art. It's a partnership between Watershed, the University of West England and the University of Bristol. We are a home for embryonic ideas, research and development and the building of new companies. Hey, how you doing? You all right? We're a meeting space for both creative and commercial industries. We offer studio space, as I mentioned before. We offer desk space and meeting rooms, events and opportunities for all of our residents as part of the spirit of generosity and mutual exchange, which makes this place so special. We're a space for people to take risks in their practice and to make time for collaboration. So do come in and join us. Have a chat with one of the team if you'd like to find out more. A little bit of housekeeping. Do feel free to move around the space. This is not school time. If you want to get up, make yourself a cup of tea or grab a glass of water. There's a kitchen at the back there. Just behind this wall, there is a little quiet space. So if you need a little bit of space to decompress, do pop in there. Fire exits are at either end of the studio, and the studio team will direct you to them should we need to use them. We are not expecting a drill today. There are accessible toilets and a baby change facility next to the kitchen just along the end of the corridor. There will be a captioned and recorded version of this talk. It will be available online after the talk is finished. If you're watching online now and you'd like subtitles, head to our Facebook page for the live stream. Just search for Pervasive Media Studio. There'll be a Q&A at the end of the talk. Please do pop in questions. We love a chat. For those of you watching online, put your questions in the YouTube chat or tweet us at PM Studio UK. And if you're in the building, just raise your hands and one of us will come over to you. You can get news and all kinds of information about future talks by heading to the website, watershed.co.uk/studio. You can check us out on Twitter at PM Studio UK, or you can find us on Instagram at Pervasive Media Studio. Now, I'd like to introduce today's talk with me and some of my colleagues on behalf of the wider research team here at Watershed. We're going to tell you a little bit about who we are and how we work and what we do. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Faraha. Faraha, everybody.
I think it's me.
It's Zoe.
Oh, sorry. Try again.
We're so in sync.
I'm going to hand over to Zoe. Zoe, everybody.
Hello, everyone here and online. I'm Zoe. That was Tony, and this is Farah, and we're from Watershed's research team. And we're kind of here to talk a little bit about what we do, who we are, why we do it in the kind of spirit of the Pervasive Media Studio of showing your workings, R&D you can see, and kind of creating some space for people to be like, what are you talking about? And give us some comments and questions and feedback. So that's kind of what we're doing today. This, if you guys haven't seen it, is a beautiful mural done by our resident, Jasmine Thompson. It's on the side of the studio as you come in. And the PM Studio was kind of created because there was a recognized need for a space in the center of the city which brought together researchers, creatives, artists, designers, and companies to come together and share ideas and work collaboratively. And the studio team realized kind of through this process that they were really asking a question of how do we do research more accessibly, more publicly, and more integrated with the everyday. And that's kind of how the studio's research team evolved and became established by our previous research lead, Hilary O'Shaughnessy. She was recognizing that the work that we were doing in the studio was research and thought we need a team to kind of steer our research agenda and facilitate our collaborative research partnerships. And so now there is a sort of vibey team of 7-ish, shrinks and grows. Here we all are. I've titled this the cutest research team in the world. I haven't got the data to back it up yet, but I think the picture speaks for itself. So we're super motley vibes. We've got really diverse backgrounds, most of us from outside of academia. We've got a real breadth of lived and learned experience, which informs what we do. And we think this is really important to celebrate difference for kind of a richer world. So I'll run through who we've got. We've got Faraha, our mighty research lead, who's a writer, researcher with a background in mental health advocacy, global health equity, science and pop culture, a PhD in infection and immunity, and also all-round Twitter icon. Faraha kind of holds all the work that we do together. We've got Tony, who's our producer with a focus on inclusion, with a background in community engagement through arts, technology, and play, always asking big questions about the purpose of civic institutions, about the purpose of the work that we're doing. We've got Rachel, who is not with us at the moment. She's looking after tiny people. We miss you, Rachel, if you're with us online. But Rachel's background is in action learning facilitation, an ex-theatre producer, and an expert in creative business. A bit of an icon of Watershed, I think, is one of Watershed's, the research team's oldest hats, not in age, but in just being part of the team. And has kind of supported our collaborative work between research and business development. We've got Emma over here, practicing artist, game enthusiast and expert, previously with the British Council, looking at supporting the creative economy for the Americas and South Asia. And Emma's now thinking about how we are locally rooted, but also globally connected in the work that we do. We've got Martin over here, our creative technologist, with a background in software development, academia, and exhibition design. And as a freelance technologist, he's done everything from data analysis for the fashion industry through to consulting on the geology of fantasy worlds, which I really need to ask you about. That's so cool. We have Vanessa, who, when I tried to write a line summarizing all the work you do was pretty difficult. There's about 14 billion things on your LinkedIn, so let's just say that Vanessa is a seasoned creative producer and more, who is kind of focused on working on complex partnership projects on audience engagement, creative tech, talent development, and artist work. And there's a little me. My background is in climate advocacy and campaigns, and I'm thinking about how we can support the creative industries to think about and act on climate justice. But it's not just us. We are not just 7 people, we are rooted in a wider community. It really informs what we do and how we do it, which Tony will talk about in a second. But we're really at our core collaborative. We're really lucky to sit in a public venue with audiences that we can speak to every day, within the studio where we've got artists and researchers who we can talk to every day. We have the privilege of being able to present and test our work all the time, live. And also just wanted to shout out to all the brilliant producers and researchers who came before us and created this space to be experimental and continue to create the space to allow us to do research in a fun, different way. So now I'm going to pass over to Tony, who's going to talk a little bit about how we work.
Thanks, Zoe. Okay. So before this talk, the team had a little bit of a chat about these next few slides and to talk about how we approach our work and how kind of the methodologies that we use. And I actually find it really difficult. I find that we blur the lines between kind of established methodologies and processes and ways of working, and then our values and our principles. We draw on our past experiences, lived and professional experiences, and to kind of build an understanding of what works well and what doesn't work so well. And we couple that with, hopefully, our understanding of what we think is right and what's just. And there's an element of that kind of pulls its way into our work as well. So I find that we spend a lot of our time as a team, or we find, in the team, we spend a lot of time defining ourselves by what we are not. So we spend a lot of time going, oh, we're not this and we're not that, and we don't do this, and this is not what we are. So actually the challenge of us trying to define ourselves by what we are for the purposes of today's presentation has been really interesting, and it's been really enlightening, so thank you for joining us for it. So the first one that I wanted to talk about is process over product. So many opportunities for funding and for research and for experimentation in the field of creative tech and engagement in the arts and things like that come down to the product. And they come down to things that we can point at. I call them the flashy, beepy, shiny things in the world. Like, what is the thing that we can look at and go, this is what we built. We, the research team, and the wider PM Studio team and the Watershed team, we absolutely love that stuff. This building is filled with them. But really, the thing that really excites us, and the chat that we were having before this presentation, is how those shiny things come to be. What makes the beeps? How did we arrive at this product? Why is it the right response to a problem? Who did we ask about it? Do they want it? Are we the people for it? Is somebody else the right person for it? We talk about process over product, and in doing so, we hope that we can centre the journeys that people take when they get to their products and all the messy bits that entails, and the audiences that they are building for and with, as well as part of that process. I think this is a form of action research, and we think it's key to our approach, us learning and building as we go. We're going to come back to that in a little bit. Really importantly, centering on the how and not the what means that we can create and we can nurture a whole bunch of frameworks and policies and processes which people can then take and they can replicate them, or they can remix them, or they can completely reconfigure them to make them useful to themselves and to their audiences and the aims of the projects and the programs and the organizations that they're building. Means that it creates space for us to have conversation and to host and be part of conversations and to interrogate ourselves and our own work. And when I talk about things that are just and right and the right way to do things and the wrong way to do things, that's a conversation, and we invite people to be part of that. Hopefully the projects and programs that we engage in and develop provide those kinds of spaces. Really crucially, it creates space for us to be able to get things wrong sometimes, which I think is very powerful. This one. This is a grand statement, and I'm not sure that I'm holding myself to it. All of these are just some ideas about how we work. Nothing here written here is set in stone, and I'm sure there are people in the room that can interrogate this statement with me. Please don't do it right this second. There's the phrase research and researchers. It conjures up these images, for me anyway, of professors sat in an office somewhere surrounded by stacks of books and writing furiously, or I get that stock image of people in goggles and white coats looking at a vial of some blue liquid or something. That's the kind of things that I end up thinking about when I think about research. I say this in a grand sweeping phrase, we hold that questions about our world, how the world works and who it works for and what needs changing is research. We also hold that anyone testing a hunch about an idea they've got about something that might make the world better or fairer or more inclusive, that person's a researcher. This way of looking at research is not unique to us, but it does help us to empower people in reframing their own experiences and their own expertise with new lenses as part of the work that we do and as part of the systems and the products and the policies and things that I keep referring to that we're trying to create. On programmes such as Bristol and Bath R&D, we have a mixture of academic fellows working alongside what we call new talent fellows, those are people approaching research for the first time, all asking questions and all exploring ideas in singular spaces with access to the same resources and the same networks and the same support to generate research outputs that are on par with each other as well. One of the early titles for this slide was Research with a Small R. We moved away from it because we didn't want to make this distinction between big and little research, but there are very many different forms of research and we celebrate them all. As Zoe mentioned earlier, our staff itself is a lovely mix of people who spend a whole bunch of time in university settings or in art settings and community engagement settings, in tech settings, and that list could go on for a while, and we it's that approach of collectivity that we bring to the work that we're working in as well. It's this blend of people and experiences which help us to arrive, I think, at the right questions before we've even begun to think about what the right answers could be to go with those questions. Working in this way also affords us a space to be creative with what counts as research, specifically what counts as research methodologies within that. Even more specifically, what I really mean by all of this is that it allows us to have loads of fun with what we do. We have a bunch of fun in our team. In the last slide, I talked about the importance of process, and I think a huge part of that process is a space for play. And that means, and what I mean by that is the space to engage and to test things out without a defined endpoint or without a specific purpose, and just to tinker and to question and to create for the sake in and of itself, for the joy of it, for the fun of it. It's these spaces to try out these ideas that might lead to really great things, the flashy, beepy, shiny things that I was talking about, but also they might not. And that's okay because value is not what we can point at. It's the space to test and to iterate and to learn by failing more specifically as well. The last one that I wanted to draw attention to today, is collaboration at the core of what we do. All of the above, the last two that I talked about, come together in this belief that collaborative working is key to it. I mentioned some questions before too about how did we arrive at this product? Why is this the right response to a problem? Who did you ask? Do they want it? I don't think that we can begin answering any of those questions without engaging people that are approaching them from all different angles, both lived and professional experience, people who are really deeply engaged with the subject matter in a really deeply academic way, or people that are users at the end stage of a process who might just tinker with something as they walk past it in the street, or people that are out there trying to build tools to improve their lives or their communities and their prospects or whatever it may be. This approach manifests itself in our partnerships with universities, arts and tech organisations, community-focused organisations, and in our international partnerships and projects that we build. I'd say it's most apparent in our grounding in the PM studio and within the community of practice that exists here. The research team wouldn't exist and our work wouldn't exist without being related to the community of people that exist within the PM studios more widely. So to put some of these ideas into context, these are just a few of the programs that the research team has been engaged with up until now. I won't read through them all, but there are a couple that I really wanted to draw attention to today. So the first one is REACT. REACT is an old program from Watershed back in 2011, a partnership headed by the University of West England with the Universities of Bath, Bristol, Cardiff and Exeter. And it explored all the collaborations I'm talking about between creative companies and academics. And it was all around the idea of knowledge exchange and cultural experimentation and development of innovative creative uses for emerging digital technologies. Can you tell I lifted that copy off the website? Yeah. That in itself grew out of a program called Sandbox. Sandbox was a commissioning scheme which was developed specifically to explore to help creative companies to explore new ideas, but in that way that I was talking about before, without a client demanding a product at the end of it. It was a sandbox in that sense that it was a space to play and to try out some ideas and see what came out the end of it. All of these methodologies have come together really amazingly in the Bristol and Bath Creative R&D programme, which was a collab between us, University of West England, University of Bath and University of Bath Spa. That programme explores how we nurture the community that exists around, the existent community around creative technology within Bristol and Bath. We explore the themes of digital placemaking, expanded performance, amplified publishing and international collaboration as part of that. Amongst the many, many facets of the programme, it engages large and small industry partners alongside academics and those new to researchers that I was talking about. It engages ideas around very, very early new stage prototypes, but also works really closely with more developed prototypes who've got their eye on sending things to market and things like that as well. The last one that I wanted to talk to you about today, not the last one, sorry, Playable Cities, as the name suggests, puts people and play at the heart of the future of the city. It's a project filled with joy, and it questions how we can reuse city infrastructure and reappropriate smart city technologies to create connections between people and cities and people in other cities and other cities. And it does that through interaction and creative installations. It has worked in Bristol, it's been in Lagos, it's been in Tokyo. All about bringing citizens into city development conversations, and a great example of that is the Crane Dance project, which happened along the harbour side a little while ago, just to illustrate the point of some of the scales sometimes that we work at. In very exciting news, Playable Cities will be back. You can ask Faraha about it in a bit. She will tell you all about it. The last one that I wanted to draw attention to was towards equitable futures. It's actually a research project being led by Zara Ash-Harper and Bill Sharp, so not within Watershed, but Watershed are supporting it and our team are engaged in it. It's a really brilliant example of an exploration of process and kind of how things can and how things should be better. The project describes itself as interrogating structures of white privilege, of patriarchy and disableism, and talks about extractive capitalism. So I think it kind of really draws attention to that idea of how we do things and the systems we build and who they benefit and how they can benefit more and wider groups of people. So that was a whole bunch of words. I know it gets really wordy and ethereal sometimes. It's like, what the hell is he talking about? So I thought the easiest way to do it would be to show you an example of a piece of work. So this is a 2-minute video. It explores Circle, which was a collaboration between Roxana Vilk, the Vilk Collective, and Squid Soup. Collaboratively, they created this really joyous and thoughtful immersive experience. She talks about it much better than I will over the top of it. But it's grounded in those the questions of audiences and technology and that wider conversation about what liveness and performance meant. I think it really wonderfully illustrates that kind of bringing together of play and process and community and collaboration in the way that I've been trying to describe to you today. The work was supported by Bristol and Bath R&D, as I said, and came out of the Expanded Performance Pathfinder, which Watershed led on. I'll play it for you now. It's a 2-minute video. It's got some subtitles as well.
Circle, or Daayere in Farsi, is a collaboration between myself, Roxana Vilk, with Peter Vilk of Vilk Collective, and Squid Soup. It's a performance we have co-created together to explore the audio wave technology with the Orbs, with funding from Bristol and Bath Creative R&D. The audience experiences the piece live in the moment, and they can be anywhere around the circle. The audience's focus can switch from the sound of Vilk Collective's music to the light and sound of the orbs and the synergy between those aspects. So far, audiences have said that Circle creates its own unique world to experience in a mesmerizing, hypnotic, and soothing way, especially welcome after the restrictions of the COVID pandemic. As a collective, we spent research and development time at Trinity Centre in Bristol, experimenting with the audio wave technology. Building on Squid Soup's knowledge and experience creating light and sound artworks, we developed an understanding of spatial composition and used this to reimagine how an audience experiences our music and performance. And now we want to take this work further by exploring the live sampling capabilities of the interface and how we as musicians can control and affect the sampling of sound and light in real time. Eventually, we hope this will lead to collaborations with other musicians and performers to create site-specific work around the world and continue to expand the boundaries of immersive, inclusive, live performance.
Even through this darkest of nights, we'll be singing for you.
Thanks. I think Roxana actually did a lunchtime talk before, so if you're interested, do check that out. It's online. Have a look. I'm going to hand over to Furaha now for the rest of it.
Circle, or Daayere in Farsi, is a collaboration between myself.
That wasn't awkward. Hi everyone, I'm Furaha. I really love my research team. Okay, so just to say that nearly exactly a year ago, in a couple of days, if that makes sense, we published an in-depth article which you can find on the Pervasive Media Studio website that gives a little bit more context about our research agenda and how we arrived at our 3 themes of interest, which I'm going to explain a little bit in a moment. But also in this article, we give information about how to get into contact with us. If anyone who watches today's talk, has any ideas, feel free. We love receiving messages from you all. And I'm going to take some time now to very briefly go through our 3 research themes of interest. But it's important to say that we're also interested to hear from you about adjacent themes. As long as it aligns with our remit, we are ready to hear it. So our first theme of interest is inclusive innovation. And we know that the creative tech sector and the creative economies are quite fast-paced, or rather growing at a fast-paced rate. Sorry, I think you can see that I'm a little bit nervous today. Please bear with me. Very well established in this region. But as an R&D space and as an organization, together with our research partners, we're really interested in asking questions about how we can hold this innovation to account, how it can be more transparent, ethical, and responsible. As you've heard from Tony and from Zoe, we're not just interested in parachuting ourselves into communities and imposing our practices and our ways of working and our processes onto communities. We really want to co-create, co-produce, and co-design. So that all falls under inclusive innovation. And just to say that this lovely photo was taken by John Aitken, and this is from one of the projects that falls under the Playable City umbrella. This particular project is called Stop, Smile, Stroll. John also took this photo, which is from Playable City Seoul. So Playable City really has toured all over the globe. And brings us to our second theme of interest, which is environmental emergencies. Again, Zoe spoke a little bit about this, but We're very interested in analyzing what the effect of climate breakdown is on the creative sector, and at the same time thinking about our responsibility as an organization towards climate justice and climate action. So being led by or guided by Zoe, we're trying to reframe our thinking towards a just transition. And what that means, according to the Just Transition Alliance, is moving away from an extractive economy into a regenerative one. So again, anything that is adjacent to this, if you have any ideas, please send them through to us. The third theme of interest is hybrid products and services. And by hybrid, we mean where the physical and the digital meet. So anything from virtual reality to augmented reality to user experience. And honestly, you know, if there are any concepts that we're missing out, let us know. Again, we are, while these research themes do guide our strategy, we refer to them as evolving. So we are always interested in remaining teachable and in hearing what ideas other people can bring to us, and whether, you know, based on if they're feasible or not, perhaps we can work together and take them forward. And just to say, again, this photo is from Playable City, but this time from the Hello Lamppost project. And according to the timeline on the photo, this was from 2013. And as someone who's lived in Bristol just over a year, I find it really interesting to look at how this, I'm not sure what you call this region of the city, but just it's kind of just outside Watershed, what it looked like nearly a decade ago, especially with the flowers, so pretty. Yeah. So again, those are our three themes of interest, but I thought that perhaps I could ground them by showing you how they link into and overlap with the different projects that we have been involved in. So I'm not going to go into detail about Bristol and Bath Creative R&D or Playable City because Tony has done that. But I will say that Bristol and Bath Creative R&D is a project that is lasting only, I think, just a little bit over a year that we have left on that project. But I strongly suggest that people go to the website and look at it. It's truly an amazingly structured project. So we're involved with some fantastic colleagues at the University of Bristol on a project that is titled Connecting Through Culture as We Age. And what is very special about this project is that we work with via our delivery team, or the delivery team at the University of Bristol, with a cohort of older adults between the ages of 60 and 75 who work in the capacity of co-researcher. So again, there's this kind of trying to seed some power and break that imposition of academic research onto communities, and rather go into communities and welcome people into the research that we're doing and ask, as Tony has described, for them to give us some of their ideas, or maybe give us the wrong word, share some of their ideas in a knowledge, hopefully safe knowledge exchange environment, so that we can find ways to enhance a healthy aging process with digital technologies. Another collaboration that we work on is Container Magazine, and shout out to Jess, who was the editor at Container Magazine for a year. Container is a multimedia platform. Now, what I mean about that, by that is that we don't just commission written works. We are also looking to platform podcasts as well as recorded events. We have published up to date 5 issues, and our stats tell us that we have quite a global audience. Something else that is quite interesting about Container is that our editorial board works on a rotational basis. So what I mean by that is that there are 3 permanent editors. One of them happens to be myself, and Dr. Simon Morton and Alice Quigley as well. And then the rest of our editors are rotated on an annual basis, so that we kind of keep that editorial board fresh. And this is, I should say, an opportunity for people to link into us. So we do put out calls for pitches, so keep an eye out for that. And our tagline is Human Adventures in Creative Technology. So I hope that that gives you a little bit of a sense of what we're looking for. I should say also that you're all welcome to stay with us for the rest of the day, hot desking. And from 5 to 6, we're going to have our first Friday, which we hold every first Friday of every month. But the reason that I stopped at this point is because we always have an aspect of testing or showcasing on a small level some of our work every first Friday. And this Friday, it's going to be myself and Alice Quigley speaking about Container Magazine. So if you're interested, come and have a chat to us. We would love to show you a little bit about the website and answer any questions that you may have. Another project that we're collaborating on is My World. This is a £46 million project. No, not all of that money belongs to us. There are many partners on this project, but it seeks to enhance creative technology in the Southwest region. Have I explained it correctly, Vanessa? If I good. Okay, the nod from the My World producer lets me know that I'm on the right track. But what is important to note in this context is that how the research team is involved, and not just the research team, the entire R&D space, is that we are leading or co-leading on different aspects of public engagement and events, as well as facilitating an ideas program where we're going to be doing some, or looking to put out some commissions for Playable City. So please do visit the My World website, as well as, so there are two separate websites. There's My World on Watershed. So if you literally just go to the Watershed website and look for My World, and if you go to the My World Creates website, you will see all of the opportunities that are available. So yes, I strongly suggest that you do so, because some of these opportunities were literally just launched last week. So yeah, that's just another way that you can connect with us. So I thought that, well, we all thought that we would answer a couple of questions that might give you an indication about how best to contact us if you are intrigued by anything that you've heard today, or if you have some ideas that you feel might fit, might align with our, what we're hoping to achieve with our research. The first is, who do we work with? Well, I will say that we work locally, regionally, and internationally, and that is our criteria, basically. So as long as there is an idea that aligns with our research strategy, or is somehow adjacent to it, or that can link into the wider pervasive media studio R&D space, we are happy to listen to you. And if it's feasible and we have the capacity, we're happy to look for ways that we can fit it into our timeline. What questions are we asking? So there we have the 3 research themes. Please go to the website, have a read of them. But again, surprise us. There might be something that we are missing. We want to hear it from you. And what we always try to do here, and this is not just, again, for the research team, but we're embedded in Pervasive Media Studio, is that we tend to send emails to one another. So if one of us, if we don't feel that in a particular team we have the capacity to go forward with a particular idea, but we know that our colleagues can support it, you can rest assured that we will always signpost, and perhaps even outside of the organization as well. So please, I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't hesitate to contact us. What work do we want to do? I'm not going to read all of that. That's just a couple of bullet points to serve as a guideline, but again, surprise us. So what opportunities are there for working with us? Right now, I would say Container Magazine, for those who are interested in creative technology, who have an idea for a podcast or for an event that they need some funding to support, or for a short-term residency, or for a written piece. Always keep an eye out on the website, because we should be launching our calls for pitches soon. There is also the My World program that I spoke to you all about. Please have a look at the website. Very important also to note Playable City. We do take, I would say, cold pitches from people. So sometimes people just, come across the website and they like one of the installations that they've seen, and then they reach out to us and say, hey, I have an idea, and I also have an idea for a prototype and an idea for how we can get this funded. Can we work together? We're always happy to receive those kind of emails as well. But what is very important to say is that in a couple of months, we will be launching commissions to look specifically for Playable City prototypes, for teams that we can support in an intensive period of R&D over 3 months. So again, that is going to be facilitated via My World. Teams will get $45K each to develop a prototype and to support their time over that 3-month period. So that's another way that you can kind of work with us. So this brings us to the end of our talk. But I just want to say a very, very big thank you to our colleagues in the studio who have been so supportive, because most of us joined the research team actually during the pandemic. So it's been, I guess, just a really lovely couple of months to get to work together in this physical space. Oh, yes, in the physical space, and to develop a camaraderie. So thank you very much. And also for allowing us this time to present our work to you. And just to say that we thought that it would be a very lovely idea to extend the Lunchtime Talk platform to some people and organizations within our network that we feel are doing fantastic work that kind of hits on the different themes that I spoke about. So over the next 3 Fridays, you'll be hearing from the lead of the Department of Dreams at Civic Square, Birmingham. So that is the actual name of the department. It's called the Department of Dreams. We'll also be hearing from Professors Danai Fraser-Stanton and Ian Gilchrist on audience psychology, and then Lander and Hall, who are the creators of the IM EchoBorg prototype, I can call it a prototype, on dramatic conversational AI. So please feel free to join us in the studio, or if you can't, you can always check us out online. And again, just to emphasize that we are hosting First Friday today from 5 to 6 p.m. So we will be very happy to host as many of you as can be here. And I guess it's worth mentioning also, in very joyful news, that today we have reopened the applications to become a resident of the Pervasive Media Studio. So please have a look on the Pervasive Media Studio Twitter and on the website as well. And if you become a resident, that means that you have access to Hot Desk with us anytime that you want. You also have access to about a 170-person strong community, a diverse community of creatives and makers and creative technologists. So I think that's probably all that we have for you, and we are very happy now to take any questions. Thank you all so much.
I'm just going to thank ourselves for a great presentation, and I'll now be facilitating the Q&A. So if there's any questions, please pop them in the chat on YouTube, I believe. Oh, we've got a question. Oh, yes, that's right, that's a Broving mic.
So, the first one is by Michael Flatley. I don't know if it's the Michael.
Oh, wow.
He says, what is your favourite statistic? Mine is that only 25% of the UK population use Twitter. So just want to know your general favourite statistic, if you have one.
Wow.
It's really hard on the spot.
Well, I don't have, this is I can tell you my least favorite statistic. My least favorite statistic as someone who has a background in academia is that currently only 1% of of professors are Black people, which is quite shameful. Sorry for the doom and gloom, but I think it's good for us to recognize that. And that popped up because I think that is a statistic that is always at the fore of my mind whenever I think about like research, research context, basically. Sorry, Michael, I wish it could be happier.
Zoe, Tony?
About 5 years ago, someone told me that in America, more people recycle than vote, which I don't know how to feel about, but I thought it was weird. Anyway.
Tony, you can make up a statistic.
I can make up a statistic.
What do you think?
100% of people called Tony. So I don't have a particular stat, but there's definitely things that motivate me towards my work, I think. And it is those kind of the spaces of deficit that Faraha was talking about, and kind of actually who is not represented in the data and who is not represented in the work that we're doing. We do try and develop a whole bunch of stats within our work, within places like the Pervasive Media Studio and Watershed and things like that, to kind of build data sets to understand. This is a political answer because I can't think of a stat, so I'm talking around it. But the approach that we take around actually data-driven inclusion is something that we talk a lot about within Watershed, and kind of understanding who we are and understanding the demographics and the motivations that bring people into spaces, and then to use those as starting points for conversations about what work needs to be done. There we go, I'm going to leave it there.
No star, not even a star.
We've got one more online as well.
Yeah.
So Melissa Blackburn says, you work a lot with different partners, including universities, but what is different or fresh about your action research approach in the studio?
One of you wants to go?
Want to take it? I can take it.
Give me a sec.
I'm kind of like just looking from side to side.
I think it's funny because me and Zoe call ourselves action researchers, but then Faraha comes from a university background, so I'm trying to work out who is the most interesting person to answer your question.
I would say that when I started working here, I think, well, a little bit before I joined Watershed, I took a decision to start being more proactive about this definition of researcher that I had been trained to have in my mind. And I, kind of on the periphery now, maybe this is getting a bit existential, but I always knew that knowledge production, the way it's defined by research institutions, is a very gate-kept concept. And I accepted and knew that I valued knowledge production outside of academia. Now, I think that moving from a university context into Watershed has allowed me to work in what I had dreamed of, which is kind of valuing knowledge productions outside of academia. Again, this isn't to say that I've never encountered people who are producing knowledge and doing fantastic work and community organizers and activists. But what I always find myself telling my friends is that there is a lot of stuff that I felt myself fighting for when I was an academic to do, that in the 1 year or 18 months that I have been in Watershed, even if on a smaller level, I've been able to do. And I really want this kind of, now we're not claiming that this is perfection here at all, but I really want this kind of freedom to produce, to make mistakes, not to have to be excellent every single day. I want this kind of experience, especially for marginalized academics. So Melissa, I don't know if that has answered your question, but I would say, because for me, it's not a final answer, because I'm still discovering, and I think you can hear that I'm still trying to crystallize exactly what it is that I'm trying to say. But yeah, I definitely think that there is a difference that I've seen.
Go on.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of reflect as someone who hasn't been a researcher in an academic institution and came in, this is the first time I ever had the title of researcher, which is like a very intimidating title to have if you've never kind of inhabited that space before. And like I can speak from the experience of being totally respected as an expert. And really relating back to what Tony was saying about process over product, where about 6 months in I went to Faraha, I've got these KPIs for people who don't know, key performance indicators about what I'm trying to do. And I was like, I don't think these are the right KPIs. And Faraha went, I totally trust you to be able to do the work that what we want to do and what we want to achieve that actually serves the people that we're asking to, the communities that we're working for. And I feel like that maybe that flexibility and that focus on process over product is different to an academic environment.
Absolutely. I find, so I spend a lot of my time, bear in mind that I work on a program that partners with 4 universities, and I spend all day around academics that I really rally against that kind of long form writing, because I don't believe that anybody reads them. I say that really quietly. I've got a mic attached to me and it's going out on the internet. So I used to be the guy that wrote really long reports at the end of programs, at the end of projects in previous roles, and I'm convinced, and I used to say at the time, that some poor sod has to write it for 6 months and then everybody reads the executive summary and puts it in a drawer and never looks at it ever again. And so kind of the opportunity actually to bring research out of that space and out of that kind of long, wordy, written space and into something that's tangible and into something that people engage with and interact with is a really powerful opportunity to do all of the things that we said, to bring play into our processes, to explore who we're working for and how it's working and how it engages people in the conversations we're trying to have. In the program Bristol and Bath that I work on at the moment, we've just launched a bunch of inclusion action research programs, questions. So we're working with people, community of inclusion practitioners working in and around Bristol, looking at what best practice in inclusion means, but kind of taking it out of that. So much of it is so ethereal. And I know I've done a lot of talking today about kind of really big ideas, but actually to make things tangible and make things something that somebody can, as I said before, to remix and replicate and to rip up and to start again and make useful to themselves, has to come from real demonstrable action and things that you can point at and look at, which is the exact opposite of what I said at the start of this presentation. I think that's the thing that makes it different to academia, but also really relies on academia at the same time. So kind of that bringing together of ideas and kind of somebody doing the long form writing and all of the reading and the sitting and the thinking and stuff like that. How does that then work alongside people like us who are on the ground trying things and doing things and actually doing that quick, fast failing and no, it's not always failing. I feel like I've said failing about 5 times. Sometimes you have some really mega successes as well, I promise. But yeah, bringing those things together, I think, is a really powerful opportunity.
But I think if I can just add to something that you said, Tony, is that also there is space to hold certain tensions and certain contradictions, which I don't know that I've necessarily been encouraged to do previously, or maybe I was waiting for permission. So having that conversation where we know that, okay, these two things are facts and we can hold them together at the same time. That's also something that I have definitely noted has been part of my experience thus far here.
Oh, any questions from here? Sorry, I thought I'm facilitating. Okay, cool. Anybody got any questions in the room?
I feel like you might have started answering this already, Tony.
Okay.
But your first slide, when you talked about process over product, I really believe in, and I wondered if any of you could, in fact, anyone from the team in the room, not just you three, could talk about a process either that you've worked on over the last year or that you're working on that you feel really optimistic does stand a chance of being replicable or scalable, or could be taken and made right for a context. Just a sort of a specific example.
I have one, the recruitment process.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Do you want to?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk a little bit about kind of some of the stuff that I've been working on. So I kind of spoke about a little bit about what I'm working on, but the idea is that I was thinking about how we can create like a general framework for climate action for the creative sector in the Southwest, and quickly realised that like general frameworks for action for such a diverse sector doesn't really make sense, because part of the creative sector is Watershed, who are in this old kind of industrial warehouse that's grouped together with like a really dynamic theatre company who've used like 4 tons of granite and are wondering what to do with it. So like these general answers don't work. And so part of the process has been kind of working with people, talking with people, and figuring out that actually like a process is easier than an answer, and you need to kind of bring people in and recognize people as experts within their own practice and figure out what are the questions to ask people to help people figure out what are the solutions that work for them and what are the resources that they need, rather than telling people, as Tony said, here's another report, here's another guide, here's another long form thing which you have to leaf through to figure out what works for you. But so it's figuring out what are the right questions to give to people to help people become more sustainable or regenerative in their own practice. And I feel quite confident that that's a good approach.
Absolutely, thanks. So we did a whole bunch of work around recruitment practices. This is not just within the research team, it's within wider Watershed teams and kind of working alongside the HR teams in front of the house as well. But we started with that thing of a whole bunch of questions about, well, what is the process that we've got going on here? How does it work? Who does it work for? Who doesn't it work for? And then ask questions about how we can make it better, what motivates us towards our work, what helps our recruitment processes reflect on our values and the way that we work and our company culture and things like that. And that is a process that we shared outwardly. I did a very long and ranty lunchtime talk on it about a month ago. But it's definitely a process which is exactly that. It's a space made for remixing and reconfiguring and understanding how that works within the context of whatever you're doing or the processes that you're trying to run. It's that kind of a process which is now building into the wider work of the inclusion action research that I was talking about, kind of rather than going to people with a bunch of, hey, here's what you should do and here's what you shouldn't do to be inclusive. It's actually trying to identify what are a series of questions, like Zoe's saying, what's a series of questions and considerations you can ask yourself before embarking on a process or before developing a new product, to ensure that it does speak to the values that you hold and the principles that you're trying to work by and the methodologies that you are trying to engage with and the audiences that you're trying to bring on board to any piece of work as well. I think, yeah, it's definitely around the questions as opposed to the answers, I think, is the useful bit there.
Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Oh yeah, any more questions? Sorry, the worst facilitator in the world. Any more questions from the room or online?
There's a comment online, but it's not a question.
Okay.
Joseph Horton says, really interesting. I love the point on presenting research in a more accessible, digestible form than long reports.
Thanks.
We agree. But if there's no more questions, okay, should we wrap it up? Okay, cool. I've got some things I need to say. Yeah, as Farhan mentioned, the research team are taking over the rest of May's lunchtime talk. So join us next week from Matilda Petford, the lead of the Department of Dreams from Civic Square. She'll be sharing some of the amazing thinking coming out of Civic Square Birmingham, where they're using creativity to enable communities to imagine and dream up the world they wish for themselves and future generations. And again, First Fridays tonight, stick around with us. We're going to be hearing from Container Mag and also from the Bureau of Silly Ideas. And yeah, you can stick around on Hot Desk today. And also just to say again, all of the people that were on that slide, you can come and talk to us anytime. Yes. We're always hanging around, so we'd love to hear from you. Thanks for being here today. We'll see you all the same time, same place next week.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you.